Engaged Employee Podcast is brought to you by the Patterns of Possibility, where we help people make more meaningful relationships in both their personal and professional life. Hi, I'm Coach Lee Hopkins. My pronouns are he, him, his, and I want to welcome you to the Engaged Employee Podcast. Our mission is to emphasize the relationship between the employee and the workplace with the goal of enhancing engagement levels to create a more productive and satisfying work environment. While many organizations strive to create a more engaging atmosphere, they often miss the mark by forcing connection with big team building events like axe throwing or escape rooms. Those activities only leave employees with a short-lived sense of belonging. Organizations may also try smaller and more suffocating events like happy hours or group birthday celebrations that their employees feel obligated to attend. As a social connections and business culture coach, I've found that to create a stable, engaged, and productive workforce, there needs to be a shift in focus from mandatory fun and manufactured connection towards building trust and authentic conversation. Join me and a guest as we dive into social wellness strategies for the individual employee, techniques for developing interpersonal relationships with coworkers, and even some approaches for leaders to enrich the overall organizational culture. The Engaged Employee Podcast starts now. Hello, I'm Coach Lee Hopkins, and my guest today is April Yee. April Yee is a holistic life coach who focuses on transformative self-care practices for professionals and anyone who wants to be more fully engaged in their lives. After undergoing emergency cardiothoracic surgery, which saved her life in 2015, April has recognized the importance of self-care in creating a fulfilling and meaningful life. Through her personal coaching, April guides professionals to set boundaries, ask for help, and advocate for themselves. This is going to be a fantastic conversation. Our conversation today will be focused around individual self care strategies for employees. Please welcome April Yee.
Hi.
Yay! Welcome, welcome.
Thank you. It's great to be here with you.
It is really a delight to talk to you. I feel like we've talked quite a bit these last few days, especially because you were around for the Love Yourself First conference that happened a bit ago. But, um, you know, I know you, but the audience really doesn't know your story. How did you get into this holistic coaching?
Yeah. Well, I started working in private equity, and I worked in private equity for over 10 years, being based in San Francisco and New York City. And then during my third year in New York City, my health started to deteriorate, and I just was working a lot. I felt like I was working maybe 80% of the time, and then there's 20% that was like for myself. And
Mhm.
so I had some health issues that I didn't let heal. And so by the only way that I thought I could heal was to just quit, because then I wouldn't be working anymore. Then I would have time to heal myself and just feel like I was doing something more meaningful and creative in my life. So I quit my job um, in private equity, and that was really scary to do that. And
Yeah.
and it felt really liberating too.
Oh yeah, this scary freedom of essentially it's that okay, I don't have to do that thing anymore. It was pretty draining. I'm exhausted. Work was overwhelming. I don't feel well. But now what? I don't know what to do with the future. What does the future hold? What else can I do? The limitless possibility of nothingness could be it. So how did you decide to go towards this holistic coaching then? Because you could have done anything, and with your skill set you could have done anything.
Yeah, I think the universe helped me decide. I got my my life got realigned in 2015 when I did get really sick and had to be admitted to the hospital and then undergo emergency open heart surgery within like 6 days of being admitted to the hospital. I didn't, at that time, I wasn't connected to my body. So I didn't really know what was going on with my body. I just knew I wasn't feeling well. And I did finally go to the ER, and the doctors there told me that I had a blood infection and that the bacteria that was circulating in my heart latched onto my heart and ate up two of my heart valves. So by that time, my heart was failing. And so that's why it was an emergency open heart surgery situation, because my heart was already failing. And they did have to do some tests and procedures just to make sure that they were seeing the right things and doing the right things to help me. So when I had the heart surgery, it was 11 hours long, and my surgeon was able to do what he needed to do, clean out the bacteria that was in my heart, and also replace two of the heart valves, the mitral and aortic valves. And then after that, I was in the hospital recovering for about a month. And what I didn't mention before was that, so I had been living in New York, in Manhattan, and then I happened to come back to San Francisco, where I'm from and where my family is. And during that time is when I got admitted to the hospital. So I was in San Francisco when all this happened. And while I was in the hospital for a month, two of my friends flew to New York and helped me move out of my apartment, because they were like, you're not going back to New York anytime soon. You shouldn't be paying rent there if you're not living there. So they really helped me with that a lot.
A couple of curiosities that came up for me as you were telling me about this story, this like, wow, you've been through so much. And how old were you when this happened?
I was 35.
35 with open
Yeah.
heart surgery. And so I wonder, because you said that you weren't feeling well, that I'm using those words, weren't feeling well, really
Yeah.
tame it down. It was really tame. What what was it, the stress of the job that caused this, or what happened? How did this link between, you quitting your job and all of this illness come about?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I think because I was chronically stressed during work. My immune system was weak, and usually people who get bacteria in their blood, their immune systems would be able to fight it and not have anything happen worse than just having bacteria. But because my immune system was so weak, I think I wasn't able to fight the bacteria, and so the bacteria proliferated. So I think that happened because my immune system was so depleted due to chronic stress. And it was because I didn't know how to advocate for myself at work. I didn't know how to set boundaries for myself at work. I didn't know how to ask for help. I didn't even think I could ask for help. And so all these things kind of piled onto me as I made, I guess I burdened myself with these work responsibilities. And I created the stress for myself because I didn't know that I had other options.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I definitely relate to as trying to be a worker bee, especially when during the pandemic. So you've been doing this long before people have discovered that you can live at work when the pandemic happened. Because I certainly started to live at work. I certainly did not shut my computer down at 5 o'clock. It was on. I thought, well, it's just right over there across the room. I can't go anywhere. I'm not doing anything else. Why don't I just run my report at 9 p.m.? And
Mm.
and do things like that. And the boundary between work and life just disappeared. And so I believe this is one of those things that has championed your mission, or it's one of your missions where you help people understand that there's a manual that people have. Can you explain a little bit about what this manual is and what it means to us?
Yeah. So a manual is like an instruction manual that we have for ourselves and that we have for other people. And we think that either we need to follow these instructions or other people need to follow these instructions for us to feel good. So, like, let's say I've used this example before. Let's say I have an instruction manual for my brother that my brother is supposed to remember my birthday. And let's say he does some other things that are really great. But he forgets my birthday every year. And so if I make that a big deal, if I keep that on my manual, then I might let that sort of disconnect me from my brother, because I think like, oh, my brother should remember my birthday. And when he doesn't, then I don't feel good. Versus if I allowed myself to drop that instruction manual and say like, okay, my brother does these other things. I feel connected to him that way. Is it really that important for me, for him to remember my birthday? And if it is, I can make that request. I can say, hey, I really appreciate when people remember my birthday. Would you be open to making more effort to remember it every year? And if he wants to, he can. If he, for some reason he can't, then I don't make it mean anything about my relationship with him. I don't need to make it mean anything. And when I drop that manual, then I can have that relationship with my brother without like judging him or punishing him for not remembering my birthday. Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
Yeah, it makes absolute perfect sense. You don't have to impose what your beliefs are. This is the language that I'm using. Your beliefs are among other people. Like if they can't, then recognize, meet them where they are. There's all kinds of language that really helps me understand what it means to have a manual or instructions for other people. And
Mhm.
you also mentioned that there's a manual for we have for ourselves. And
Yeah.
so I would imagine that's like expectations that we have for ourselves.
Exactly. And it looks like, oh, I'm the type of person that stays at work until I get everything done. That's a manual for myself versus like if I want to drop that manual or change it, I can say it's okay to leave some things undone before I log off from work.
Oh my, I do. Me maybe 5 years ago, I would have had a difficult time with that.
Yeah. Me too. Me too.
I would have had a very, very difficult time with that. Like, no, I've got to perform, especially, being kind of new in my role, making sure
Mhm.
that people look at me a certain way. I want to excel. We're given this idea that we have to excel, we have to perform. And so, you and your coaching, you help us write new manuals for ourselves. How do you do
Mhm. Yeah. Well, first, it's really questioning what our
that?
current manuals are
Oh,
for ourselves. We might not even know that we have them, right? They're just beliefs that we have about ourselves, and we don't question them at all. So the first thing is that, if I'm working with you, I would ask you some questions about, how you think you need to be, either in your personal life or at work or in other situations. And
mhm.
then I would say, okay, do you think that serves you? Or would you like to think about that differently?
Okay. So you're helping me reflect on my life and what it is that I really want. What if I said I don't know? I don't know what to do.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is reflecting and, being introspective, and I would even say it's becoming aware, because
Mhm.
a lot of the time when we're not even aware that we're doing this, then we can't make those changes because we're not aware that this thing is going on. Once we become aware that we have these beliefs that we're unconsciously following, and then the beliefs can come out, then we can start to change them if we want to.
Absolutely. That was fantastic. I know that there's so much more to your story. We don't have time to share it here today, but you did talk at the Love Yourself First conference that happened in February. So if you'd like to check that out, there'll be a link in the bio. There'll be a link in the profile or the show notes, whatever it's called. There'll be one of those places. There'll be a link and you can hear her entire story. We do a whole interview, in-depth interview. You can learn about more about what she does and what brought about this change in her life and how she impacts other people. But until then, can you tell us where we can find you? Tell my audience where they can find you.
Yeah. Well, actually, can I share 5 self-care questions that people can ask themselves?
Bring it on, bring it on. I mean,
Okay.
I'm not going to say no to this.
Yeah, so this is what I wish I had when I was still working, because I really just, like, disregarded my body. I didn't even, think about what I was doing. I was just sort of, like, on autopilot. So I have 5 questions that can help us connect to ourselves and kind of stop being on autopilot, being more intentional. So the first question is, "I'm feeling blank," and it could be, I'm feeling overwhelmed, I'm feeling nervous, I'm feeling, anxious, or any emotion. So I'm feeling blank. What does my body need right now? The second question is, I'm feeling blank, another feeling. What is the thought associated with this feeling? The third question is, I'm feeling blank. What's the kindest thing I can do for myself in this moment? The fourth question is, at what cost? So if I engage in this action, is there a cost to my health or well-being? And the fifth question is, how do I want to show up today for myself and or for others? And these questions can really just help us become more intentional about connecting to ourselves, and then how we want to show up for other people, and what we want to take on or not take on at work when we ask ourselves that question, at what cost? And it's even for anything like a social event too. You can say, okay, if I decide to go out for drinks tonight with colleagues or friends, at what cost? Like, what will I, and at what cost to my health or well-being? And it could be that you want to go out with your friends and or colleagues, and there is no cost. Like, or you're willing to, not feel that great the next day. If, let's say, you have more than like 2 drinks. Or you can say, I'm going to go out with my friends and I'm going to only have 1 drink tonight. So there are options. And I think that's the most important thing that I would love people to know, is that they have options for how they want to engage in the world. I think before I thought I only had a very narrow path that I could walk down, and I didn't know that I could have other options for myself and kind of interact with the world and my work in a different way.
Wow. I don't think I need to say anything else about that. That was very, very powerful and impactful, actionable steps. That's what we're about here at the Engaged Employee Podcast. April, tell us once more where they can find you.
Yeah, so my website is thehealingmodalities.com. And I have blog posts there. You can see, you can find out more information about my coaching programs and about me. And then I'm active on LinkedIn. Um, I think it's just linkedin.com, and then you can search April Yee.
Mhm.
And I'm starting to be more active on Instagram. And so that's the handle is at the Healing Modalities on Instagram. And if you want, you can even email me. And my email address is thehealingmodalities@gmail.com.
Yes, who wouldn't want to email you after hearing all of that great knowledge and to hear more about the story? I understand that you have also an exploratory session. Go to our website, go check that out, go book one of those calls, go have a real intentional conversation with April. April, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm so delighted to get more time with you, more FaceTime with you, hear more about your story.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's so great to be with you.
And there you have it, another insightful episode of the Engaged Employee Podcast. We hope you enjoyed the deep dive into the world of employee engagement, leadership, and workplace dynamics. The Engaged Employee Podcast is brought to you by the Patterns of Possibility, where we help people make more meaningful relationships in both their personal and professional life. Before we wrap up, we want to extend our heartfelt gratitude to our incredible guests and, of course, our loyal listeners. Your support keeps us motivated to bring you valuable content each week. If you found today's discussion thought-provoking and want to learn more about how we can help you or your organization make more meaningful relationships, go to patternsofpossibility.com and book a friendly conversation with me. Or you can email me your questions at patternsofpossibility@gmail.com. Stay connected with us and engage with fellow listeners by following the Patterns of Possibility on LinkedIn. You can also catch us on YouTube. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring that notification bell to stay in the loop. And if you prefer the audio version, make sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Your support means the world to us, and by subscribing, you'll never miss an episode. Thank you for being a part of our journey to create workplaces where passion meets productivity. Until next time, I'm Coach Lee. Stay engaged, stay inspired.